Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Behani Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Behani Gopijana Vallabha Givaradhari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanacha Yamunatira Vanacha Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Behani Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Behani Gopijana Vallabha Givaradhari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Givaradhari Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Behani Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Behani just preparing things. Starting. So good morning. This morning I will present a topical class that because tomorrow I'm leaving for Ottawa for a Vaishnava Sangha. I present there a 3-part workshop on how to attain the bliss of chanting. So, and this is, I will give you, I will present an essential part now of that seminar. And I will start with reciting this verse. This will not be an, how can we say, not a traditional class in which we repeat a verse. I will just recite a verse. So, just a moment to get everything in order. Yes. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So you can repeat. Nivrita Tarse Rupagi Amanat. Bhava Satakshotva Mano Biramat. Ka Uttamasloka Gunanuvadat. Pumam Vriyajeta Vinapasukhnat. I read the translation of the verse. Glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is performed in the Parampara system. That is conveyed from spiritual master to disciple. Such glorification is relished by those no longer interested in the false temporary glorification of this cosmic manifestation. Descriptions of the Lord are the right medicine for the conditioned soul undergoing repeated birth and death. Therefore, who will cease hearing such glorification of the Lord except a butcher, or one who is killing his own self? Om Ajnana Timandasya Chanansana Shnakya Sakshavad Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhuttale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamine. Namaste Saraswata Devi Gaurvani Pacharane Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paskachai Desatarane. Srila Prabhupada Ki So this verse we recited here is part of the conclusion of the part I will present today. So we will discuss this verse at the end. That now we are all chanting the holy names of Krishna every day, most of us for certain, and maybe for many years. So, but do we attain the real bliss of chanting? That's a question mark. The chanting of the holy name is a process with stages, 3 stages. The first stage is the apparat state of offensive stage, in which we make offenses, we chant with the wrong inner attitude. But if we overcome that, then we come in the clearing stage. Anartha-nivriti, the heart becomes purified, and as a result we get taste in the chanting. And then when the purification of the heart is completed, then we go to the next stage of Sudhanam, or the pure name. When you chant in the pure name, you develop love for Krishna. You become greatly attracted to Krishna. But for chanting the holy names in a proper mindset, Lord Chaitanya has given us the verse, the 3rd and the 4th verse of Shikshastikam, which describes the proper mood of chanting. Trinata Pishanechanata Ora Visrisna Amana Manalina Kirtanya Sadari Nadanam Nachana Sundarim Kavtavashi Sikami Mama Chamami Chamamishvai Bhavta Bhaktra Haitakitvayi. So one should chant the holy name in a humble state of mind, be more tolerant on a tree, ready to give all honor to others, not asking of honor for oneself. Don't want wealth, don't want followers, don't want relationships with opposite sex based on sexual attraction. One should only serve the Supreme Lord without any motive, just out of love, and that birth after birth, even not asking for liberation or getting rid of the cycle of birth and death or of suffering. No, just serve out of love. But to do that, and this is mentioned in Harinam Chintamani. Harinam Chintamani is a work compiled by Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur in the year 1900. How old was Srila Prabhupada at that time? 1900? 4 years, yeah, 4 years, yes. And this Harinam Chintamani, this is a compilation, but in the form of a samvad, of a dialogue between Lord Chaitanya and Srila Haridas Thakur, who is the Namacharya. And that Lord Chaitanya is asking Haridas Thakur about how to properly chant, how this chant. Yeah. And Haridas Thakur replied, to properly chant this holy name, one must be situated in Sambandha Jnana, the knowledge of one's actual position as a spiritual soul. So, of course, Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Mamaivam Sochivela Shiva Bhuta Sanatana, we are spittle sparks of the absolute whole. And this spirit soul has a natural relationship with that supreme absolute, which is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And we have this relationship. But it's now covered over by material energy, by anarthas, it's covered over. This relationship is not something that you have to develop, it's already there. We have our eternal relationship, and a very special relationship. We can understand the material nature, we have all a different fingerprint. No one has the same. We are unique, and we have all a unique relationship with Krishna. But that relationship will only be revealed when this cloud of anarthas, this ignorance, is removed from our heart. But of course, we know that we are a servant of Krishna. That's the essence, das. We are all servants of Krishna. But what kind of servant? That will be revealed at a certain time. So how can we drive out these anarthas? Srila Haridas Thakur mentions in Harinam Chintamana, you have to approach a spiritual master, and the spiritual master gives you Sambandha Jnana. Gives Sambandha Jnana, knowledge of our relationship with Krishna, to the disciple, and instruct the disciple how to chant the holy name. So therefore, the jiva, the spirit soul in this world, must take up this chanting of the holy name with the correct sambandha, knowledge of sambandha, of our relationship with Krishna. What is the symptom? You get this sambandha, this knowledge of your relationship with Krishna, but you must accept that knowledge. You accept that knowledge when your character is reformed. Because this character reformation is important. But this Sambandha Jnana, this knowledge of our relationship with Krishna, that requires this reformation of our character. What does it mean? It means cultivating the qualities of a sadhu and come to that point of having a humble attitude of servitude, of a servitor. This is completely opposed to the mentality that most people have in this world. That's the mentality of exploitation, of sense gratification. People want sense gratification, and that's completely opposed to it. In a Bhagavad Gita lecture, I heard this a few days ago, Srila Prabhupada is addressing his American disciples. And he tells them, you are not truly Americans, because you are rejecting the American lifestyle. The American lifestyle of exploitation and sense gratification. So you are living in America, but you are not accepting this American lifestyle. So Prabhupada also said, I came to America out of duty, on order of my spiritual master, I didn't want to leave Vrindavan, but I came. Although I'm physically here in America, I did not accept the American way of life. Internally, I'm still in Vrindavan. So what does it mean? This is an important message for us, that yes, we are part of this society, but at the same time, we are apart. We are not mixing with the society and their habits. That the Prabhupada internally was always in Vrindavan. That's especially when we chant, we should be in Vrindavan. This Vrindavan mode. So that means we must be internally fixed in the mood of a humble servant of Krishna and the Vaishnavas. And externally we do everything what's necessary for bodily maintenance and for fulfilling the mission of spreading Krishna consciousness. So we see that also Rupa Goswami, externally he was a renounced monk, sannyasi. But internally he was living in the mood of Shri Rupa Manjari. In fact, that is explained in the Sat Goswami Astakam. We sing that many times. Nana Shastra Vichayana Kenipino Sadharma Samstapaka Lokana Titakarino Tribhivane Manye Sharanya Karo Radha Krishna Padara Vinda Bhajana Nandena Matalika Vande Rupa Sanatana Raghujaro Jiva Kopalaka. So this verse, this verse of the Sat Goswami Astakam, the 8 verses Astakam, this describing or glorifying the 6 Goswamis. It tells us they are absorbed in the mood of the gopis and they are engaged in transcendental loving service of Radha and Krishna. So that's their internal life. Of course, we cannot imitate or even cultivate this unless we are free from anarthas. But we can adopt the humble mood of a servant of the spiritual master of the Vaishnavas, the devotees and of Lord Krishna. So that is conducive for coming to a real spiritual position. Because once we are purified, then gradually Lord Krishna from within the heart will reveal us what kind of servant we are. So once this mood of a particular servant awakens in your heart, when that begins after liberation, then you can cultivate Raganuga Bhakti. You follow in the devotional mood of Ragatmika Bhakta, a Nitya Siddhi, an eternal liberated devotee in Vrindavan. Anyway, that's explained in Nectar of Devotion. But yes, for us it is the question, how can we cultivate this favorable this favorable mood, internal mood, helping us to come to the mood of a position of a servant of Krishna. And Srila Narodam Das Thakur, this is from his song Lala Samaya Partan. We sing Gauranga Bodhite Habe Pulaka Sarira Hari Hari Bodhite Nayana Babini Hare Kabenitai Chander Karuna Hoibe Samsara Vasana Mora Kabetuchahabe. So Narnam Das Thakur sings, when will I obtain the mercy of Lord Nityananda? And when, by the mercy of Lord Nityananda, will my desire for material enjoyment become insignificant? Because this is the big anachton. That, so Lord Nityananda is the original spiritual master. And by the mercy of the spiritual master, the devotees can give up this tendency for enjoyment of the senses and even for liberation. So Haridas Thakur says here in Harinam Sintamani, at least Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes, one should agree to accept again our constitutional position as a servant of Krishna. And this can be realized to realizing the knowledge of Sambandha, the knowledge of our relationship with Krishna. But if we realize that by the mercy of the Guru, then the ignorance of these anarthas will go, and just by the Sambandha Jnana and a proper sadhana. So developing this desire to be reinstated as a servant of Krishna in our original position. And we have in the 6th canto of the Bhagavatam, there we have Vritrasur. Vritrasur is fighting with Indra. Vritrasur is externally a demon. Internally is a pure devotee. So the external does not always show what's the internal. Indra is externally a great demigod, pious, very pious. Internally is a Sakam Bhakta. He wants to serve Krishna, but he has also his own agenda, his own desires. But there we have Vritrasur is addressing King Indra and says, "O my Lord," is praying, "O my Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, will I again be able to be a servant of your eternal servant?" That is his desire. Can I again be able to be a servant of your eternal servants who find shelter only at your lotus feet? O Lord of my life, may I again become their servant so that my mind may always think of your transcendental attributes and my body engage in loving service to your Lordship. In the purport, Prabhupada writes, this verse gives the sum and substance of devotional service. One must first become a servant of the servant of the servant of the Lord. So that is this verse of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that Srila Prabhupada is paraphrasing here. That Gopi Bhartu Kamani Udas and Udas and Udas. So a living entity should always desire to be a servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna, the maintainer of the gopis. What does it mean in practice? You must accept the spiritual master who comes in the disciplic succession, who is a servant of the Lord. And Under his direction, one engage one's body, mind, and service in the service of Krishna. Now, this is an introduction of this Sambandha Gyan. Now we will go a little deeper. And relate it to our chanting. We are living in this material world, and often we get wrapped up in external situations. In our school, in our career, our relationship, our health, finances. We start to chant while we are absorbed in this external consciousness. That all these extraneous things come into our chanting. So chanting becomes a space where we plan our day, when we ponder on our problems, we rehearse or repeat our speeches we have to give, or during the chanting we make a shopping list, or we can even worry about the world situation, maybe a war will come, or we decide what our next meal will be, or we make our menu. So we chant, but we remain absorbed in this material world. So this material consciousness, it's a product of our false ego, of our misidentification with the material body. We must always be aware that we are like when you have a room and you go out of the room and you never come in that room again. You are just on the verge to go out. Are you still concerned with what's going on in the room? No? So we must realize that we are not this material body. We are not permanently related to anything in this world. All of this will be gone in due course of time. Whether we invest energy in it or not. Of course, we need to be responsible in our external affairs, but at the appropriate time, not during your japa. That's not the time. Like we take responsibility for our external affairs at the appropriate time, not during japa, but we must also be responsible for our internal affairs. While chanting, we need to fix the focus from the temporary to the eternal, from the false ego to the real self, from illusion to reality. And for this, we must remember our true identity. Sambandha means relationship. We have all an eternal relationship with Krishna as his loving servants. That's our real identity. And Chaitanya said, Shiveras Svrupa Krishna Nityadas, Krishnera Tatasta Sakti Beda Beda Prakas. It is the living entity's constitutional position to be an eternal servant of Krishna, because we are marginal energy of Krishna. And a manifestation simultaneously one and different from Krishna. We are one in quality, but not in quantity. We have the same quality as Krishna, Sat Chit Ananda, eternal, full of knowledge and bliss. That's our constitutional position. But when we forget this fundamental fact and identify ourselves, when we identify ourselves with these material bodies and mind, immediately we become entangled in an unlimited web of anxieties, which extracts us from the chanting, distracts us from the chanting. So we need to remember our relationship with Krishna. And we remember that we are Krishna's servants. There is nothing to worry about. The purpose of our existence is to serve Krishna. And the best service is chanting. So during the chanting, we should just absorb ourselves in the holy name. So Haridas Thakur stresses this importance of understanding, chanting with the understanding of Sambandha. So in Harinam Chintamani, he said, if a person, by a saintly Vaishnava's mercy, understands one's relationship with Lord Krishna and chants his holy name, that person attains a great treasure of spiritual love. So, you have the devotee's mercy, and you have the understanding of your relationship with Krishna. And if you have these two, then you can obtain this treasure of spiritual love. But as long as we do not understand our relationship with Krishna, then we will not take shelter of the holy name. But Haridas Thakur says, we take shelter of the shadow of the holy name. So there is a huge difference between the real holy name and the shadow. Like if you get a digital image of a delicious meal, or you have the meal just cooked in reality, so the image may look good, but it leaves us hungry. Similarly, the holy name, the holy name deeply satisfies the soul, whereas the shadow leaves us spiritually hungry. If our experience of chanting is unsatisfying, we will try to satisfy our hunger through material sensual pleasures. So we must prevent this tragedy. We need to tune in with our relationship with Krishna when we chant. And there are three elements in this relationship: understanding we are a servant, understanding the served, the one who we are serving, and then understanding the nature of the service. So the servant is us. The served is the Supreme Lord in the form of His holy name. Chanting is a service to the holy name. And the service is carefully pronouncing the names with love and devotion for the pleasure of the Lord. That's the service. So we must be mindful of our relationship with Krishna in that way. And then we can taste our chanting. Get taste from our chanting, transcendental taste. But this awareness of our relationship with Krishna does not come automatically for the conditioned soul. That doesn't come automatically. So we must make a conscious effort. So it can be helpful before starting chanting to meditate on this sambandha and set our intention for the chanting. And we have a prayer here, a prayer to Krishna to be situated in this sambandha, our eternal relationship. So I will read the prayer. I'm the eternal servant of Krishna, but due to ignorance I've gone astray and become lost in this world. Forgetting my eternal relationship with the Lord, I've identified myself with the body, thinking that my bodily relationship and my work to maintain this body are most important. Like this, I've passed one lifetime after another in various species. Since time immemorial, I've been wandering in the cycle of repeated birth and death, suffering various miseries. Now, by the mercy of the devotees of Krishna, I've learned that I'm an eternal spiritual being, that I've nothing to do with this world, factually. I'm completely different from my gross and subtle material body. I've an eternal life with Radha and Krishna in the spiritual world, which is my real home. My eternal family and friends are waiting for me to come back, so that we can again blissfully serve Radha and Krishna together. I deeply long for this. I'm so fortunate that my path back to the spiritual world has become clear. The Lord has personally come in the form of His holy names to dispel my illusion, revive my eternal relationship with Him, and take me back home. I let go of this material world and everything in it. There is nothing for me to do here. I hold tight to the holy name so that nothing can get in between us. And I serve Him with all my heart by chanting with full attention and complete dependence. So, this is a small prayer which shows the desire to be established again in our original position. We have actually nothing to do with this world. Somewhere or other we are here. That to wherever Prabhupada was Vrindavan, because internally he was serving Radha and Krishna in his heart. Internally. And that's our real life. So the practice of chanting or devotional service has three parts: Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojan. Right? But first we have to establish our Sambandha, our true identity as a servant of Krishna. And then our goal will become clear. We need to revive our lost loving relationship with Krishna and go back to Him. That's called Prayojan. That's the goal. And that's, if we must define where we want to go. We need to figure out how to get there. And that's Abhideya. That's the process. The process is simple. The proposes chanting the holy name. So, Sukadev Goswami, he uses a dramatic metaphor. Everyone knows what a metaphor is. It's an example, practical example. He uses the example of a bow and arrow to explain this sambandha, our relationship with Krishna. And so, this bow and arrow, he used that to explain sambandha, abhideya and prayojan, all three. Means our true identity, the process for attainment, what we are, but if you want to attain something, you must know what to attain. And that's the ultimate goal of life. That this is a verse from the Bhagavatam of Sukadev Goswami, 7:15-42. Tanuritasya pranavam patanti sarantu jivam parameva lakshyam. The Vedic mantra pranav is the bow, the pure living entity is the arrow, and the target is the Supreme Being. And Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport of that verse, the living entity tries to be happy within this material world, not understanding the goal of life. When he is purified, however, he gives up the bodily conception of life and his false identity as belonging to a certain community, a certain nation, a certain society, a certain family, and so on. Sarvopadi vinirmuktam tat parattvana nirmalam. Then he takes the arrow of his purified life, and with the help of the bow, the transcendental chanting of pranav, or the Hare Krsna mantra, he throws himself toward the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the target is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And in our tradition, it means the service to Radha and Krishna. But how would someone in this material world, the conditioned soul, get to ever know that? What's the goal? In the conditioned state, we set our sights on so many targets: a brilliant career, a beautiful house, a happy family. Why do we desire these things? That brings us to the verse of today. The importance of hearing. Because we accept a certain identity, a purpose and a goal in life based on what we hear. When we hear that something is good, we desire it. A friend tells us how good a restaurant is, before hearing their review, we didn't even know it existed. But now suddenly we want to go and eat there. Or a relative tells us how fun their trip to the seaside resort was. And suddenly we become interested to experience it ourselves. However, if we hear from someone else that there is a much better restaurant and a much better vacation spot, our target is likely to shift to a better thing. It's all based on hearing. So the more we hear about Krishna, the more we will be convinced that loving service to Krishna is the best to aspire for. And the more sharply focused our attention is on the target of Krishna when we chant, the more likely the arrow of our life is going to hit that supreme target. Even if one knows nothing about Krishna or his holy names, or about the transcendental sound vibration of holy name, that it still will have effect. But for those who know something about Krishna, the effect of the chanting is stronger, because the process of hearing and chanting, that it's supported by smaranam, by hearing and remembering Krishna, by remembering Krishna. And by remembering his transcendental form, by remembering his wonderful qualities, by remembering his pastimes. If you want to have a relationship with someone, you must be interested in the person and his qualities and his activities. That's natural. Therefore, there is a conjunction with the chanting of the holy names. We must hear Krishna Kapta topics to become established really in the Sambandha Jnana. That hearing about Krishna, that hearing from Bhagavatam, that this is a quote of Prabhupada from a purport from Bhagavatam 2.2.30. When we speak of hearing and chanting, it means that not only one should chant and hear the holy name of the Lord as Ram, Krishna, or the Hare Krishna mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. But one should also read and hear the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. So we read this verse which is on the board. Nivitatar serpagiamanat, vafastak shotvam manobiramat. So nivitatar ser. One, because that's the beginning of the 10th canto. And this is Maharaj Pariksit speaking to Sukadeva Goswami, because he just said a few verses before that, because in the 9th canto, Krishna spoke, the Sukadeva Goswami spoke about all these dynasties of kings, and he described the Surya dynasty and the Soma dynasty. In the dynasty of the Soma dynasty, there he mentions Krishna. And now Sukadeva Maharaj Pariksit says to Sukadeva Goswami, tell me more about Krishna. But to understand Krishna and really understand deeply our relationship with Krishna, you must be free from all material desires. And how can you get rid of all these material desires? Bhava sadak shotva manobiranat. Bhava sadak means you have to take a medicine of shotra, hearing. Manobiramat, your mind must be absorbed in hearing about Krishna. That is the medicine. And we have to take that medicine every day. Every day. When Chadvaita Maharaj was in Koblevo in Ukraine, that was the last festival we had there, international festival. And he gave a class on this verse. And one devotee raised his hand and said, I'm hearing every day the Bhagavatam, but still I have all these material desires after many years. And the answer of Maharaj was, and then the hearing is the medicine. Then you have to increase the dose of the medicine, and you have to hear more. So constantly hearing that, and that's important. It's not only the Bhagavatam class. That's during the day, if I have to do things, cook or whatever, I'm hearing Prabhupada. I have this little device with all the lectures of Prabhupada, and it plays one after another. And I'm hearing constantly. Always hearing. Because that's the medicine. It enters the ear, in the 177 of the Bhagavatam, it said it should be injected by oral reception to the ears, and then it goes to the heart, and then it purifies one. It purifies one. One becomes free from LIF, lamentation, illusion, and fear. Will go because you start to identify yourself with your real self, not with this body. Identification with this body creates all these problems. But then on the spiritual platform, there are no problems. There may be spiritual anxiety, but that's ecstasy. And that's difficult to understand in our materially conditioned state. But by hearing to the ears, we come to a change of heart. And how does that happen? Srila Prabhupada explains, Srimad Bhagavatam is full of narrations of Krishna's pastimes, and these topics are like life-giving nectar. Tavakatamritapam tapta jivanam. We need to seek out pure devotees of the Lord and hear topics of Krishna from them. Then, when we chant Krishna's holy name, Krishna's pastimes, which include his eternal associates, his divine abode, his paraphernalia, etc., it will become alive for us internally. And as we continue chanting the holy name and hearing Krishna Katha, we will begin to emotionally connect with those pastimes. When we hear about the loving relationships that a particular eternal associate has with Krishna, we will feel a similar love and will develop an intense desire to know more about that relationship. We will develop a strong desire to follow in the footsteps of a particular associate of Krishna and serve Krishna in eternal pastimes under the devotee's guidance. In this way, that love that awakens in our heart is not just a general loving feeling, but it is something very specific. We may love Krishna with a mood of humility as our kind and merciful master, with a mood of friendship as our loyal, playful best friend, with a mood of parental affection as our charming and sometimes naughty child, or in a mood of infatuation as our captivating and irresistible lover. How the Lord Hare reveals himself to one who chants purely in a mood of service is explained by Jiva Goswami. He says that first by hearing and chanting the holy name, one's consciousness becomes pure. Thereafter the Lord appears in the pure heart of the chanter in his beautiful transcendental form. As the devotee goes on hearing descriptions of the Lord and chanting the holy name, the devotee experiences revelations of the Lord's qualities. Those qualities unfold gradually, becoming more and more dynamic as they are interrelated with the Lord's associates. When all these aspects are revealed, the Lord's pastimes fully blossom in the devotee's heart, and thus there is a sequential process of revelation from the name, form, quality, associates, and pastimes of the Lord. Srila Prabhupada explains the same thing in a lecture of Nectar of Instruction. Text 8 explains that we should chant these nectarian names of the Lord 24 hours a day. And in so Srila Prabhupada stresses that the teachings of his spiritual master Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who said in the neophyte stage one should always engage in hearing Krishna Katha. Neophyte means we are not yet liberated. The neophyte stage is called Kanishta Adhikar, and that starts really when, because Haridas Thakur says Kanishta means Namabhas, is the clearing stage. If we have not entered the clearing stage, we are not yet a neophyte. We are lower. And it may take years to come to that clearing stage, because you have to give up the 10 offenses. And these 10 offenses are an indication that you are not situated in Sambandha Jnana, in your relationship with Krishna as a servant. That if you check them, all 10, you read them, you will understand this. So we should always engage in hearing Krishna Katha, and then we will come to the stage of, if we always hear, that's called Shravana Dasa, the stage of hearing. That comes first. And if we constantly hear the transcendental holy name and hear the transcendental form, the qualities, the pastimes, then we come to accept them in our heart, and that's Varna Dasa. And then accepting means we will start remembering them. Smarana Dasa. But it's of Smarana Vasta. And in a lecture, Srila Prabhupada explains, also in the purport, when a lecture he gives more details. You have these 5 stages of remembering Krishna. Recollection, absorption, meditation, constant remembrance, and trance. So in the beginning, sometimes you remember Krishna, sometimes not when you chant. But when it becomes constant, your clearing stage is finished after 30, 40 years, or it depends. It can also after a few years. It depends on if you have made advancement in previous lives. We don't know. But usually it's a process that goes over different lifetimes. So we are devotees because we were devotees in our previous life. Prabhupada said. But he said also something else. He said, because there is a verse in the Bhagavatam that said, one who chants the holy name has done all Vedic sacrifices, all austerities mentioned in the Vedas, all study of the Vedas, has all done that in previous lives, if you come to this. And a devotee asked Srila Prabhupada, did we really do that? And Prabhupada said, don't worry about it, I've done it for you. So that's the mercy of a pure devotee, that's very special. But sometimes we remember, sometimes not when we chant. And then it becomes constant. When it's become constant, you are nishta after liberation, and then you become attracted. And you have the desire to see Krishna. And then Krishna, in such a pure heart, will reveal his form, his two-armed form as Krishna. The first thing we will see is his beauty, his form. So after the name comes the form. And then the meditation becomes deeper. And then we start to perceive Krishna's qualities. His beautiful smile, that his sweetness, his beauty. And then we start to see, Krishna is in an environment, he's in Vrindavan. And you start to see Vrindavan, the parrots, that you see gopis and gopas, and then finally you start to see Krishna's pastimes in your heart. And that is what happens. The aprakat lila of Krishna in the heart is revealed. So we see that there is a progression that if we understand what's the perfection in life and how it can be attained by the chanting of Krishna's names. But chanting should be done together with hearing. So these two processes side by side must be there from the beginning to the end of our lives. I end with a quote of Prabhupada, hearing from the text of Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is considered the most important process. So hearing from Srimad Bhagavatam is considered the most important process of hearing. Srimad Bhagavatam is full of transcendental chanting of the holy name, and therefore the chanting and hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam are transcendentally full of mellows. So the message here is, if we chant, be with Krishna in Vrindavan in your heart. Forget everything else. We are covered by these different layers of false ego and anarthas, but we should endeavor to make a little hole in that covering. We need only a little hole. The spiritual is very small. We go to the hole, and during the chanting we are with Radha and Krishna and his associate. So that is what we should desire during the chanting. And there will be still distraction, but still every time we go back to the whole. And then the chanting becomes truly satisfying. If we during the chanting we meditate on all these material problems, that's not good. That will not give a satisfaction. All these material problems are temporary, will be gone soon. It's a nature, material nature. But during the chanting we should not be material nature, in the spiritual nature. In 96, when it was in August, I arrived in Mayapur. My Guru Maharaj was doing a tour with the devotees to different holy places, and first was Mayapur. And he was leading a parikram, and at the beginning of the parikram said, "You have now arrived in the spiritual world. Now only engage in hearing about Krishna and chanting his holy name. You are on the spiritual platform. Don't come down again to the material platform. Don't. Remain transcendentally situated." And that's the message during the chanting. I hope that was helpful. Hare Krishna. There's much more to say. Maybe we have 5 minutes. Any question or comment? Yes?
I have a question. That you mentioned that while chanting you should be completely dependent on the holy name. So if you could please elaborate how to remain completely dependent on the holy name during chanting.
Yeah, I'm completely dependent on the holy name. That dependence is usually a process but that process, if we hear from so many devotees in the Bhagavatam, how they depend on Krishna. You have these beautiful prayers of Queen Kunti, which shows how to depend on Krishna. that said to Krishna, you saved us always from so many troubles, from a poisoned cake, of being burnt in a house of lac, by being eaten by man-eaters. You were always there to protect us. That's so. Krishna protects his devotee always when a devotee fully depends on him. So that becomes a lifestyle, that a life's attitude in everything you do. That you think, yes, I'm going to do this, but first you pray to Krishna. Should I do this, Krishna? Is that going to please you? Is that pleasing the spiritual master? That before everything we do, that's depending on Krishna. And you get instructions of the spiritual master, and in executing them, you have challenges. But you don't give up. You depend on Krishna. You always continue depending on Krishna. I'm traveling, going to so many countries, and naturally the body becomes sick. But still you have to go on, so you depend on Krishna. Then some devotees come to give you massage and help you, and then somewhere or another before I leave again, I'm again in a good shape. That you travel, you have to go to so many places. You have to pay these flights and all these things. Shall I get the money? It has never been a problem. Krishna always provides, sometimes at the last moment. But you depend on Krishna and see what Krishna is bringing in your life. And it means whatever happens in my life, good or bad, I accept as a mercy of Krishna. These are a few aspects of how to depend on Krishna. Hope this helps. Hare Krishna. Good. Thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.